Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Modi government has issued its first formal high-level statement on the India-China standoff, with Rajnath Singh, who's Defence Minister, as you know, speaking in Parliament today. Now, I will take you through some the key points of what he said, particularly the highlights that I picked up. But before that, let me answer a question that many of you raised with yesterday's Katta Clutter in your responses to it. Many of you asked me, how come I did not talk about the first day of Parliament? Because that's what you might have expected me to do. That's because experience would tell me that first day of Parliament usually is not the big business day of Parliament. That's when you have obituary references and lots of routine stuff. The business end begins only on day 2. And day 2, I'd say, in terms of news value, began with a bang. There was a walkout for sure, which is common these days, but no, did not begin with a bang because of an adjournment or because of a big disruption, but because the Defence Minister spoke up for the first time formally at that level on behalf of Modi government and on behalf of India on the India-China standoff. Now, before I take you into his speech, I will also tell you that the Chinese have been preparing for some of this. They know that India has a parliament, they know that there will be a statement in India, and they are smart. Never underestimate your adversary. They are also smart enough to know that Indian Defence Minister will have to reassert his own position, will have to talk tough in parts, even if it is somebody as cautious and as careful as Rajnath Singh. And an Indian Defence Minister speaking in Parliament cannot be as diplomatic or as ambiguous as, say, a diplomat or a foreign minister can be. So I think, sort of by way of taking anticipatory bail or entering a caveat, as we say, before this speech, they had an article on Global Times. I know my colleague Snehesh Alex Philip told you in today's Government Matters that Global Times is a tabloid. It is a tabloid, but it's run by Chinese Communist Party with a purpose. It is not to give any message to people of China. It is to give message to others, also for psychological warfare, also for propaganda. So there's an article there by a Chinese scholar whose name is Qiang Feng, and this article appeared on the 13th of September. Qiang Feng, who's a director of Department of Research at Tsinghua University, who used a very interesting line and a very loaded line. He said Indian Defence Minister is playing the bad cop, Indian Foreign Minister is playing the good cop. And then he goes on to say that in Moscow, where the talks between these two Indian ministers and their Chinese counterparts took place, Rajnath Singh was tougher, but Jaishankar was more conciliatory, and that's why between Jaishankar and Wang Yi, his Chinese counterpart, they were able to sign that 5-point agreement or five-point joint declaration. And then that article goes on to say, we expect India or India's Defence Minister to talk tough, but this is a constitutional system in India. He doesn't use the word constitutional, I'm inserting it, but he says clearly that in India, it is the political government that decides what the military does. So this is not a country where you can say, oh, the government is deciding this, but the military is not following this. Compliment to India, but a loaded one. And why do we say loaded one? Because they are putting again the onus on the Indian political leadership. One, trying to give them some kind of an alibi, and second, also to put some pressure on them कि देखो तुम्हारी फौज तुम्हारी बात सुनती है कि नहीं. These are old games. Everybody is familiar with them. Nobody is bothered. So this bad cop avatar, is that what Rajnath Singh displayed today? If you look at some of his mannerism, in the way he spoke, some of it could be like that. He thumped the table with a clenched fist. He also held up a clenched fist a couple of times. But the tone was very conciliatory. Not only was the tone conciliatory, the tone was always, also, if I may say so, quite candid by Indian standards. Indian statements in Parliament, particularly on issues of national security, and definitely when they are not connected to Pakistan, are very, very, very cautious. My old friend who unfortunately passed away very young, Ashok Saikia, who was a leading light of the IAS, he had once been posted as assistant to Dr. Raja Ramanna when he headed the Atomic Energy Commission. There's always one IAS officer who's posted there to assist the chairman. And Ashok then said to me, and this is something I've used in a column earlier, he said to me that when he went into Department of Atomic Energy, he was told by Dr. Raja Ramanna, your main job is to answer Parliament questions. Remember, never lie to Parliament, but when they ask you for your name, tell them your date of birth. And if it's a question about any nuclear issues, say something that gives away no information, but that draws an applause from Parliament. So India's defense ministers, foreign ministers, prime ministers on foreign threats have also used the same approach. This speech, however, was candid, unusually candid in some ways. First of all, this speech clearly said that there is no commonly delineated line of actual control between India and China, that China does not recognize traditional or geographical boundaries, which in my book only means the watershed principle. It does not recognize that. Also, that is why, because there is no common perception of what is the exact LAC, that's why these protocols have been devised since 1993 to keep the peace. And he notes that since 1988, that's when Rajiv visited Beijing and met Deng Xiaoping. Since 1988, India-China relations have been stabilizing and getting better. Then he says that Indian position is very clear, that as long as that, okay, your relations today will not be affected by your differences on the border, those negotiations and talks can go on. In parallel, your relationship can keep improving also. So these are two parallel lines. One is stability on the border along with as and when possible negotiations, and the other line which is normalization of relations on the other hand. If one goes south, then the other will also go south, or maybe directions are wrong to use in a sensitive border type issues, territorial issues like this, If one begins to go down, the other will also go down. So you cannot have trouble on the border, instability on the border, and yet the relationship between the two countries progressing in the same direction. In fact, the famous line that Deng Xiaoping, I believe, used with Rajiv Gandhi was that maybe this generation, your generation and mine, today does not have the wisdom to resolve the border problem. Let's leave it to a wiser generation. That's an aside. Then he goes on to say that we also had agreed in the past, in our protocols, that the two sides will keep a minimum level of troops at a certain distance from the line of control, or their perceptions of the line of control. But China violated that beginning April, when they moved in large bodies of troops, equipment and ammunition, he says. And he says India found that out. India's intelligence agencies that pick up these things, he said that, and report to all those who need to know. When that happened, there was contact established, and then he goes on to the story of how Indian patrols were stopped. India's normal patrolling patterns were interfered with in Galwan and then in Pangong, etc., etc. So he says early May, the Chinese hindered Indian patrols in Konkala, Gogra and Pangong. Now, very interesting, he is not mentioning Depsang plains in any of this. Now, if you see a lot of the government critics, they say that the major territory loss that India has had to PLA has been in Depsang plains, that is subsector north as it's called. I'm looking up because it's north, and this is abutting Daulat Beg Oldi, and that is flat country, tankable flat country in a sensitive zone, and you will soon see an article on the print by Snehesh Alex Philip explaining just why this area is important. Now, the government view has been, and which is what I think comes out in this statement also, that they do not see India as having lost any territory in Depsang, but they see it as continuing interference in Indian patrols to areas which both sides used to patrol. So if you, now I'm extrapolating this is not what the defense minister said, so don't put these words in his mouth. As Nihesh will tell you later, there are large areas of clashing perceptions in Depsang Plains where both sides used to patrol in the past. The Chinese would come, the Indians would go. One would see the other and say, boss, you go back. Bhai bhai mein ladai kya karni hai? And they would go back. So to that extent, it was very similar to what Pangong Tso was between Finger 2 and Finger 8. Both sides would patrol that area. Now the Chinese have come and taken ownership, or at least of claiming ownership, by pitching deep and heavy up to Finger 4. Similarly, India is not confining itself to Finger 2. It has also pitched itself deep and strong on Finger 4. In fact, even in the areas where the Chinese have come in, Indian troops are now gone to higher ranges to dominate them. So that cat and mouse is going on there. The difference in Depsang is the Chinese started interfering with Indian patrols. So Indian patrols are not going, but the Chinese have also not come and pitched tent and dug in or positioned forces there. That's how I understand the situation, and that's the reason I think Rajnath Singh has avoided mentioning Depsang in his speech today. Again, that is my extrapolation, that's my understanding or my interpretation, but I think it's quite okay. I don't think it is a bad interpretation. I think it's a safe interpretation to make. Then he goes on to say that, look, our troops have responded, and the exact words he used, Sanyam, that is patience and calm, and Shaurya, that is valor. So wherever needed, when push came to the shove, they were up to the task, including in Galwan Valley, where the clash took place. He says, he mentions Colonel Santosh by name, Santosh Babu by name, and 19 other soldiers, other ranks, but he also says that Indian soldiers fought back ferociously and inflicted heavy casualties on the Chinese. So at the same time, he has praised their patience. He has not been provocative. Then he goes on to tell us that although the two sides met many times, corps commanders met on 6th of June, but in spite of that, on the 15th, there was a physical clash in which people died on both sides. Then he goes on to say that again, there were many agreements and many meetings, and even despite that, on the nights of 29th and 30th August. Now, this is something which has been confusing us for some time in making news. What exactly happened on those nights on the southern bank of Pangong Tso? And he says that once again, Chinese brought in their units to try and change the status quo. But he says that Indian forces intervened and make sure that they were thwarted. In fact, the expression he's used is that once again, Indian forces intervened and made sure they were thwarted, like he says Konkala, Gogra and Pangong. Now, the only area where we know that there is a territorial issue right now is Pangong North Bank, because it is quite evident that Chinese have come from Finger 8 to Finger 4. India considers the line of actual control at Finger 8. So, and then he doesn't say what exactly have the Indian troops done on the southern bank. He says there are operational details which even if I want to share with you, I cannot share with you, and I think that is understandable. Now, he has also given the Indian position that he stated to his Chinese counterpart. He said, he stated the Indian position in 3 points. Number 1, both sides should respect the LAC, which means the current de facto LAC, which means जो जिसके पास है उसके पास रहे. This is obviously April. Number 2, no side should make any unilateral change in this status. And 3, both sides should abide by all agreements for stabilizing and keeping the border situation peaceful over the past many decades. The Chinese position, on the other hand, is a little different. It has a nuance. Chinese position is more limited to the situation on the ground should be handled by troops in a more responsible manner. You can draw what interpretation you want. I'd rather not do in a hurry. Then he also explains that while India and China have had standoffs several times in the past, this one is different. And Once again, that is not something that Indian defense ministers usually do vis-a-vis China, but he does list out the differences. Number one, the level of violence by the Chinese troops, Chinese PLA troops, it's very high. In the past, we haven't really seen much violence, maybe a little pushing and shoving, but no more than that. This time it's been radically different and of a higher degree. Number two, trouble has broken out simultaneously at many more points than at any time in the past many decades. And number three, it is the scale of troop deployment by the Chinese. That's very different, and he goes on to say reassuringly that for all the deployment the Chinese have done, India has carried out a counter deployment, and we are now watching the situation. The two external affairs ministers have signed their 5-point declaration. Let us see whether that can lead to normalization or not. And then he tells you his usual platitudes, which is that we want peace with all neighbors. At the same time, we are prepared to defend our sovereignty and territory, etc., etc. Now, you see all this, and we don't exactly know how the Chinese will respond, because this ball is in China's court. Why? Because they are the ones who started it, and they are the ones who tried to change the status quo at the line of actual control as it existed, not as it was recognized by both sides, as it existed. And second, they are the ones who brought in the heavy stuff, some of it in the guise of an exercise, and that was in violations of many agreements whereby each side is supposed to notify the other about any exercises and shifting of equipment, and is supposed to take it back after an exercise. That did not happen. This was deliberate deception and was seen as such. So it's for the Chinese now to decide whether they really want to extend this. They want this standoff to go into winter, because then there is no knowing at what point something on the ground will go out of control. Because you might say Rajnath Singh is a bad cop, Jaishankar is a good cop, but both take their orders from Modi. So whatever they say, you have to understand in terms of what Modi government is thinking, and that's reassuring that we think Modi government wants peace. That's one thing to say, but on the ground, when it's an Indian Major Saab and his Chinese counterpart, and the troops are angry and something happens, then the ministers are not available with their reserve and their patience and their thick skin at that point of time. So these are dangerous games of brinkmanship which the Chinese have to be careful about. Having said that, I will tell you one more thing. Please read a story by my colleague Amrita Nayak Datta today on the new roads India is meanwhile developing on the Himalayan frontiers with China. So the most important is a second road being built to Daulat Beg Oldi. Now we know that this standoff has exposed us to the fact that the new road that we built from Darbuk to Daulat Beg Oldi goes much too close to the line of actual control in many places, particularly Galwan. So even if the Chinese are not sitting on the heights there, just by using any artillery or precision guided munitions, they can interdict that road quite easily. What happens then? Then does your Daulat Beg Oldi garrison get cut off? So another road is being built for them from a place called Sosoma in Ladakh, going up to Sasirla, that is Sasir Pass, abutting Siachen Glacier, and cutting through that 18,000-foot pass, and then making a landing at a place called Gapshan. And if you've seen that landscape around Daulat Beg Oldi, nothing is low there. So Gapshan is lower than Sasirla, but Gapshan is about 17,000 feet. But then it's flat, relatively flat, and that is where this road will then come over Sasir Pass and join the last bit of the Darbuk Daulat Beg Oldi road and give you a second route to DBO, which is protected from Chinese interdiction, because most of this new road is about 90 kilometers away from the line of actual control. Once again, it's quite an engineering marvel. You have to cut through real glaciers at 18,000 feet. So I don't fully understand it. Maybe we need an engineer to explain to us. This will be the world's first fully glaciated mountain road. all-weather glaciated mountain road. So that's being done. And two more interesting roads which were planned earlier, but where work is now being accelerated, as Amrita's story tells you, is one from Poo in Himachal on the China border to Chumar in Ladakh. Chumar is the southern end, as we see, of the Ladakh-Tibet border. So that is today, if you go from Poo to Ladakh, these are adjoining states and this is a continuing border. You will have to go round and round. It will take you 700 plus kilometers. So a new road is being built between them. Similarly, a new road is being built between a place called Harsil, which is sort of above Gangotri, right on the borders with China. It's also called Switzerland of India. It's a very nice place. That is where the Prime Minister had spent a year and I think, or a Diwali with Indian troops there. So Harsil to Karcham in Himachal Pradesh. Again, Karcham is a little bit in the deep, but an area on the highway and not far from the Chinese border, on the highway leading to the last Indian village there. So this is now a new east-west axis coming up, which will be good for defense, which will be good for movement of supplies, and which will be good for everybody. The only thing it will not be good for is environment, but then when national security comes, then you take what care you take. But on the other hand, national security takes precedence over everything else. So we should pay a little tribute to Border Roads Organization, because they are the ones who are carrying out this near impossible engineering job. But when it's done, it will make India safer.